Hi, and welcome to Praeternatural Mysteries with your host, Ivotres Littles and Dr. Lovey. We will take a closer look to the paranormal, supernatural, and the unexplained. But before we get into that, how are you doing, Dr. Lovey?
I am burning up hot. This is a scientific reenactment of what they would have experienced during the Celtic rituals of Halloween, or Samhain, Samhain.
or one of those names. It looks hot.
Apparently, I'm going to think that it must have been a great deal cooler wherever they were, because this is outrageous. Lord.
Well, they probably was outside during that time.
Okay, that explains it.
Yes. So, but I guess we should get going before you just burst into flames.
Spontaneous should be one of our shows.
So, I have a question for you. How did you celebrate Halloween?
I thought that people dressed up as what they wanted to be. So I would dress up as things that I wanted to be. I wanted to be more of a witch, or I wanted to be more of a fairy princess, or I wanted to be a dragon one year. And I thought that, and this is a little kid's brain working, but as you grow up, I thought that you got to take the powers that night. You got to be the dragon, or perhaps you could fly that night, or breathe fire, or perhaps you were just really good at sword play, or perhaps a little bit of sorcery would happen if I dressed up as a witch. And of course, the main goal was always candy. Candy was the driving force behind everything.
It was the driving force. So if you do not know yet, I have not said the topic, but I'm going to say it now. The history of Halloween. We're going to break it down to two parts because there's so much information out there about where it came from, how it started, just so many stories. Some are fun, some are gruesome. It wasn't all pleasant where this started. So we'll get into that. But the first half, we're going to get more into where it came from, how it evolved, where did the word Halloween come from? It wasn't always that. And then the second half, we'll get into the more of what the States was doing during that time, over time, how it was celebrated, how it changed. But first, we got to get to where it came from. So, since you're dressed as as if you were about to do all kind of rituals or something like that, so talk about this whole attire.
This is actually the Red Witch from the Game of Thrones. And I just thought that the fabric was so incredibly beautiful that I had to get it, and this was a good excuse to get the whole outfit. But the truth is, as we go into the history of Halloween, the first rule of Halloween was hearth and home. It was lighting the hearth fire, celebrating what was the new year for the Celtics at the time, and bringing in the harvest and providing a huge feast for your family. But more specifically, your ancestors were thought to come visit you on the night of All Hallows Eve, and you would always set a place for them at your table. So we bring in the harvest, we create a feast, we set empty spaces with full plates for our ancestors. We celebrate our ancestors, we celebrate our harvest, and we just celebrate that we've lived this. We've ended the year, and it's the celebration of a brand new year. The nights get longer, the days are darker, everything's a little colder, our crops are starting to die. So on this night, after the feast, they would light a huge fire. Everyone would take and douse their hearth fires and go out to the huge bonfire that was communal and take that fire back to their home and light their hearth fire that was supposed to protect them throughout the rest of the year. And that's so beautiful in a way, because this is family, this is harvest, this is warmth, this is celebrating ancestors, and just what a glorious celebration it started as. And I love it. It's a great celebration now, don't get me wrong. Candy. But
it
at
it is
this
a great celebration, yeah.
at this moment in time that we're talking, it's hearth, home, harvest, family, and it's
Hmm.
beautiful.
Yeah, it is a beautiful. I mean, back it was kind of a religion almost.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, it was their religion, and it started all the way back from in the records. Though I mean, it could have been further back, but I came across a specific date to where things started to really be celebrated, and that was 609 AD, where
easily,
it's actually records at that time of this celebration.
easily,
And
yes.
yeah, yeah. So like I said, it would have went all the way back there, but a
So we're
lot
going
of things
back
got
to before Christianity. We're going back to before the Holy Roman Empire. Yeah,
Mhm,
and we're talking small communities, social communities gathering. You lived and died by your communal strengths. And yeah,
mhm,
when the Romans came into play throughout the land, and
mhm,
then the Pope got involved, they changed the time period. So whereas the pagans would have said this is the new year, this is the ending of the harvest and the beginning of um, almost like an internal cycle where you go back into your home, back into the ground. The seeds are not coming up. Everything kind of freezes over, and
mhm,
you're almost like an internal reflection of what your life and your home, your family. But
mhm,
when the Pope got involved, they were like, "Hey, let's change the dates. Let's add all of our holidays in there. Let's see if we can get all these people to convert, because we
mhm,
want their money and their land and their harvest and their work and their labor." And that's how that got involved. And so they incorporated some other things, like I believe the Festival of Pomona, which was a harvest festival but was held at a different time, was brought
mhm,
into the same period. And then, of course, they moved the New Year
mhm.
after they added some Caesars in there, I think.
When read a little bit about this whole thing, I thought Halloween October 31st. I mean, dates have changed, but let's just go for October 31st. Halloween is actually the eve, like Christmas Eve,
Yeah.
for right before the actual of the All Souls Day, All Saints Day. And I did not know that. I thought Halloween was like any other holiday, but it's like the eve, like Christmas Eve, and then there's Christmas Day. So at that time, they believe back then that's when, like you said, things froze over. A lot of crops wasn't,
Everything
you
was
know,
harvested, brought into storage, brought
yeah.
originally the spirits were happy. It was just that the veil was thinning. And for example, let's say, my grandma and grandpa have passed. So originally it would be like grandma and grandpa could come back and they can have this feast with me, or they're there whether I see them or not. They're there with us, blessing my home. And it didn't become scary until religion got involved. And I mean
That's
religion,
right.
Christianity. And that's when they
Christianity.
said, oh my God, the dead are hungry. Oh my goodness, the dead want to take our souls. The dead are looking for something. The dead walk with the witches, and therefore you have to eventually have the lantern and you have to scare off the dead. So
And
that's
that's
when the
when it
costume,
converted over to All Saints,
that's when,
because
yeah,
because it wasn't it was all martyrs, and then all souls, and then all saints. So that's when the Christianity came in. They changed it. They didn't want to tamper with it too much, because they still kind of believed in, okay, we don't want to mess with, we don't understand entirely, but there are going to be some rules.
yeah,
There's
and
gonna
politically they
Yeah.
wanted that labor force and they wanted that land and those resources. So they were like, hey, we celebrate your stuff, but no, it's got different names. Follow us.
Yeah, and that came around. So but they kind of dibbed and dabbed into it a little bit, but
Mhm.
it didn't really get into like full-blown Christianity until after the ninth century. Like after it just kept going, it just went like like they were kind of forced to change over. Some had to be baptized. I mean, because it was the Celtics and the Druids, and then it was like, oh no, we're not going to have none of that. And then when the Romans came around, it's like when Christianity and Roman um, times kind of merged into each other. It was like, okay, none of that. You got to follow these rules, because then that's when it really started changing over.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and people were trying to get out of that. And if you didn't follow the rules, you were killed, you were tortured, you were, um, your land was taken away. Like you, it's kind of like you had to follow the rules.
We've got Christianity involved. And now we've got a little bit of the, ooh, no, it's spooky. No, it's evil. That night is dangerous. Those travelers that are out, beware. And so now we start seeing elements added to the Halloween ceremony that is the go ahead and dress in a disguise because it'll fool the evil spirits that are trying to find you. Carry a lantern to protect yourself. Eventually, they said that witches walked with the dead. And then, of course, we have the vilification of females throughout religion as well, throughout that religion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you know, they took that religion very seriously when 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 I was reading, like they took it very seriously. They would kill you if you didn't participate
They had a
in
fabulous
the
army.
festival.
They had a fabulous army. A bunch of guys with swords were like, hey, jump. Good. Have fun.
Yeah, they would kill you if you didn't participate, because it was very important that everyone in town got involved. Then they had specific people to go home and light the fire, because the fire had to be lit by special logs. It's just not anything that you just pull off the ground off a tree. Everything was specific and very important, and had to follow the rules, because they had to. The spirits had, you know, the spirits had to know where they were going, because some, you know, they would visit their house. They had to know it was okay to go.
Mm-hmm.
And then you also had to keep some of the bad ones out. Some would leave food outside, for the spirits that didn't have anybody. They took it very seriously.
Absolutely. And then there were elements of the ceremony that came into play where it was, like you said, for those that didn't have families to visit, they were considered disembodied roaming spirits, and they were considered hungry, dangerous, evil, or could be considered evil or malicious if they couldn't find their family or sustenance. So you had things like people would dress in disguise, and eventually they would go from home to home, town to town in disguise, and they would pray for the souls of either the family that's there or the ancestors that had passed, or they would pray for the souls of just dearly departed people. And that was called souling, which I love the term. We're going to go souling tonight, you know. And eventually those families, the people that dressed up were also called geysers, as in disguise. So they would go guising and souling, and then the families knocking on the door, hello, I'm going to pray for your souls, give me something to eat, and they would give them what was known as a soul cake. And so basically that is, I'm here, I'm going to perform a prayer for you guys, and please feed me something nice. And that's really where a lot of the ceremony came into play. Nowadays, we've got snotty little kids saying, I'm going to give you a trick if you don't give me a treat. But before it was like, hi, we're going to pray for you.
Well, that sounds way different. Actually, it's safer now than it was back then.
Today, there are many religions that circulate around the worship of the god of the dead, because in essence, everybody goes through that god. No matter who you've been, if you've been alive, you go through that god. So, even today,
these people really believed that there was something, or some kind of spirit world where if you did not do these things, it
Bad
would
would
cause
happen to
havoc.
you.
Yeah. So that's why our crops, our animals, we cannot feed them. Things are getting sick. The weather is changing. The nights are longer. It's like all these things, but obviously they didn't know the difference of seasons.
They knew the difference of seasons without question. You have
Okay, so
no cable, you have no video games. All you do is look at the stars and you figure out what epochs the sun's coming up on and where it's going down, and you just kind of
okay,
mark it
so
all day
even with
long.
the seasons, even understanding that, they believe that there is some kind of entity that controlled that, and you had to abide by the rules, because that is when, since the nights are longer, the ancestors, the spirits of their ancestors roam the land, and some don't know where they're going, some are vicious or upset, or just, so they have to do the things that they had to do to appease them, to make sure that it's okay, because it's when the both worlds are the thinnest.
Right, the veil is the
They're
thing
the
between the two
thinnest
worlds. Yeah.
between the two worlds. How?
How much do I believe?
Yeah.
I want to believe. I will happily believe in Santa because it makes my life better. I will happily believe in the Easter Bunny because it makes my life better. And I completely believe in ghosts and spirits because I have seen a full body apparition. And I have seen things that are not currently explainable but must be explainable because they have been seen by so many people. So, as far as our ancestors coming into play, the Chinese believe it, the Japanese have religions that are based on ancestral worship. The Vikings believed it. Every single major religion mostly believes in ancestral worship, or at the very least, a concept of karma, in the sense that if you give someone a lottery ticket and they haven't pulled those numbers yet, I guarantee that person's going to be really nice that day because they're thinking that someone's watching from above, and if they're really, really good, they're going to get something good out of it. So there have been, throughout history, we have followed rules, or we have thought that if we do good, good will happen. If we take care of our family, if we take care of our ancestors, and our ancestors are happy in the afterlife, then good things will happen, and we'll avoid tragedy, sorrow, some bad things that happen in life. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Well,
What do you believe?
I want to believe.
I hear you.
I do. I want to believe. I mean, things are written down, and I've growing up, I would hear, if it's written down, it must be real. It must be some truth to it. As I got older, some of that's baloney. But if it makes you happy, I mean, it's more power to you. I have nothing against any of this stuff that I'm finding out, learning, or anything. It's just hard to believe now, because as time progressed during that time period, it started to contradict itself.
The religions,
So,
without question, contradict themselves. But the
yeah.
ceremonies, harvest, family,
Mhm.
home, warmth, kindness, generosity, security, these are all universal truths and beauties that are found throughout the world.
And see, what's so sad about this whole thing is that it was their normal life. They'd done this for centuries. And as soon as someone believed in the higher power, no, that has to change.
Right.
You follow these rules, but I'll let you play with what you're doing. However, then you get a few individuals that started to believe, no, that's devil's work. It must be witchcraft. And that started in the European states, and then that's when it started to travel over here. Then it really changed a lot. But in the northern states, they believed it differently. The southern states, they believed it one way. So it was you think
There,
education I think education played a big part because there was a lot of famine. People needed someone to believe.
And someone
Um,
to blame sometimes too. Yeah.
yeah, when things go wrong, oh, she must did it. Check her. She got a mole on her. She's a witch. So Halloween, or All Souls, All Saints during that time, was a it wasn't always peaceful. Like I said, they actually sacrificed people sometimes if they had to, or kill you if you didn't show up to the party. They did sacrifice some animals
They,
during that time,
they did definitely.
but this was in all in power of the festival
Mm-hmm.
to make sure things um were at peace when it needed to be, and things change over. We got to harvest, we got to take care of our family. And also that was also during a time where people paid their debts. They paid property tax, whatever they had to. That was during the time a lot of settlements were done at that time, and it was just something that was normal until the Christianity come in, and that is something that changed a lot that we will get into.
Yes.
And that's also when all martyrs, was it All Martyrs Day, All Saints Day, All Souls Day, All Hallows Eve. And then that's when I find out that Halloween is just a shorter version of All Hallows Eve, because some people are just lazy. They just want to say it all together. That's why it's Halloween. um, but we will definitely get into that part when it hits the States. It wasn't all let's knock on the door and get candy. It was okay, we gotta appease these spirits. We gotta, make sure the harvest is going, and we're gonna have to sacrifice one of you guys if you
By the way, you want to see a game called Drawing Straws? I'll tell you
and literally because that's all they had was straw. And yeah, it wasn't all great and fun. So we will get into that.
Ireland, Wales, France, Scotland, very strong in those areas. Um, when they came over and they settled, obviously a lot of those people came from Ireland, England. They brought some of that ceremony with them. But if you want to look at it on a very, very basic level, when you look at, they were celebrating nature, they were celebrating the harvest, and that is a very historically feminine power. And then you bring religion and law and politics into it, and that is very historically a masculine power. And that was when they did the vilification of the females, and that's why they had the witch hunts.
Man, the witch hunts were no joke.
Mm-mm.
I mean, just doing what you normally do. I
That,
mean, like, see, think about, I mean, now we just, light an incense. I mean, light a candle, sage. I mean, it's like normal here.
yeah.
But back then, you were lynched just lighting a sage. It's like, oh no, what is that? And you definitely couldn't say you were into any kind of herbal remedies or medicine. There's only one doctor, but even then, he was looked at kind of funny to make sure, because if this person falls ill, oh, what were you doing, doctor? It was just so quick to turn on you. And I think definitely that's a lack of education. The more that I read about it, the more that it's just, come on. I
It's
mean,
very, very easy to simply say the devil was involved. The devil made me do it. It's very, very easy when you have the concept of good and evil in that very focused mindset. Unfortunately, it's very easy to just blame one or the other. Everything that good must come from the above, and everything that's bad must come from below. So
changed over, obviously, here in the States. It wasn't necessarily it changed over to Halloween, but it was still kind of All Saints Day and stuff like that. But in the South, especially Louisiana, I mean, they obviously had their own kind of witchcraft. You know, they believed in that kind of voodoo and things like that. So it was normal to them to believe into the spirits. Where in the North, during like Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, no, it wasn't happening.
Prim,
Yeah,
proper. Yeah.
yeah. Thank you, Dr. Lovey, for this history of Halloween, a brief history. I should have said a brief history because there's so much history of Halloween. And we're going to continue this in part 2. So thank you guys for watching. If you want to see more videos like this, please like, comment, and subscribe. And we'll have more festive, fun things like this. So until next time, make sure you get to part 2. Until next time, bye guys.